Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Vicki Townsend, and I am the founder of theCafeD, and you are here today because it is DivorceRx. And I'm really excited about this one because this is, we bring all the divorce industry insiders and experts that are actually working on the process of divorce. And today, I'm really excited for two reasons. First of all, it's been the most shared topic that we've had, which is, finding out how much your spouse is worth, right? But also, our guest today was my own forensic accountant during my divorce, and I trust her very much. She did a great job for me. So when I bring somebody on, it's because I trust them. And in this case, I actually worked with her, and she was amazing. So today you're going to be in good hands as we talk with Sonja Reposa from J.D. Gilbert. Sonja is currently a partner in the litigation department of J.D. Gilbert & Company, a CPA firm located in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Sonja and her team are responsible for the marital dissolution and forensic accounting division of the firm. Sonja joined J.D. Gilbert in 2000 and has developed an area of expertise in litigation support services, primarily for medium to high net worth marital dissolution cases. Sonja is qualified in the South Florida region as an expert in all areas of family law and forensic accounting cases. In addition, she prepares individual and corporate income tax returns. So prior to joining that firm, she was an associate at Barnes, Borverst, Reposa, Gosnell, and Endowski CPAs, providing services for the state of Florida remediation program. Prior to that, she was a staff accountant at Ahern, Jasko & Company, providing tax and financial accounting services for individual business and forensic accounting for financial institutions related to the commercial real estate loans. So the reason that I have Sonja here today is because we've had a lot of people on our Facebook page and in Twitter kind of commenting about how they felt like, they had spouses that were hiding assets. So this was really super important. So Sonja has been nice enough to spend this time with us to talk about that. And what I want to share with you is that you can get on to our private Facebook group. It's not our public one, it's our private one, where it's members only, where you can actually ask Sonja some of your very personal questions. And to do that, you'll be going to www.thecafed.com and joining our membership group. It just starts at $7 a month. And where can you go and have access to a forensic accountant like Sonja, to divorce attorneys, to wealth advisors, to marriage and family counselors, child psychologists. We've got them all, including real estate and insurance. So we've got all of those experts plus so much more back there for you. So we hope that you will take the time after we finish talking with Sonja today. We'll give you a few minutes. It won't take you much time to get involved and to make that becoming a part of our community. So I wanted to say welcome to Sonja, because she's got a great presentation on all sorts of things, from hiring a good lawyer, the financial aspects of your divorce, the division of your assets, your alimony, child support, and the tax implications of all of this, which she was amazing at helping me through. So welcome, Sonja. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm great.
Good to see you. So why don't you take us through, I know that you have something very specially prepared. I wanted to just let people kind of see you, because we're not going to be seeing you much once you get started, because you have an amazing PowerPoint presentation for us. So I want everybody to know if there is a way that they can reach out to you and ask, get in touch with you. Can you give us your email address or your website so that people can touch base, and we'll have Famira put that up for everybody so that they can get in touch with you.
My email address at my office is Sonja, S-O-N-J-A, at jdgilbert.com. And my phone number is 954-419-1000.
Fantastic. So everybody has that. We'll put that up in the chat area right now. And Sonja, I'm going to let you take this away, because I know you have it jam-packed, filled with great information. So go ahead, my friend, and share your screen.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so the topic of today's discussion is discover the true value of your assets when you need a forensic accountant. The very first thing that you want to do is to hire a good lawyer. And basically, that the very first process that you want to do is to basically interview, I would say 2 to 3 different family lawyers. A lot of lawyers today are open to having 1-hour free consultations. So I suggest that you take advantage of that because the divorce process can be quite lengthy. And you want to make sure that you are comfortable with your lawyer because you're going to develop a relationship with them for a period of time. Within that interview, you would want to, have a discussion about the fees. There's retainers involved. There's hourly rates that you want to talk about. And you just want to keep in mind that, any fees that are related to alimony are tax deductible for your tax return when the case is finished. So keep that in mind. And the third thing is you want to make sure that the lawyer is going to be suitable for your case. Depending on the size of the marital estate and so forth, you want to make sure that you hire someone that is a full-time family lawyer, that they have experience, in the various courtrooms in your area. It's very important that you hire someone that is, in the family law realm, because if you hire a real estate lawyer who's a friend of a friend, it doesn't always work out so great. So just keep that in mind. Okay, the next topic is, do you need a forensic accountant? And basically, most clients will discuss this in advance with their lawyer, but there's some criteria that you should keep in mind at the onset of your divorce, and that is, number one, are there any premarital assets? Okay, either you or your spouse may have come into the marriage with inherited funds, or a business, or a brokerage account, and all of those things need to be considered because when it's time to divide up the marital estate, those items could be considered premarital or non-marital and would not be considered to be split as part of the marital estate. The next criteria would be if your spouse or if you are a high income earner with many benefits. The benefits could be stock options, restricted stocks, perquisites, such as health insurance, auto expense, retirement benefits. There's just a whole myriad of benefits that are out there for, employees that work, especially for large corporations and so forth. So, and that can be very tedious work for an attorney to do. So they'll look to us to do that. Again, if you've got a spouse with ownership in a business, whether it's wholly owned or partially owned, was it acquired during the marriage? Was it inherited? Was there stock that was gifted during the marriage? All of these things need to be really taken a good look at because it weighs into the marital estate. You may have a spouse that you've been married to for 10 years and they came into the marriage with a business, and let's say that it's grown in leaps and bounds, then there's an appreciation factor that would be considered to be marital for just the period of time during the marriage. You also have to take a look, at the alimony factor. A lot of times we will perform a lifestyle analysis. It can be for 1 to 2 years, depending on the size of the alimony claim. And that's where we just take a look at everything that was expended for, the 1 to 2 year period. Charge cards, bank statements is very tedious, but it basically is what you need in order to evaluate the amount of support that you will need for alimony. And lastly, calculation of the child support. Most family lawyers can do this on their own, but when you factor in the alimony and, if you've got any, income earning assets, the income calculation basically is what we are, hired to do in addition to the equitable distribution schedules, because the income is what you base the alimony and the child support on. So for the payor spouse, basically we're going to look at their wages, we're going to look at all their perquisites, and for the non-income earning spouse, we're going to look at your alimony that you're going to get, and all of that factors into the child support calculation. Okay, with regard to the financial aspects of your divorce, we have the division of the marital estate, which is the equitable distribution schedule. And basically, that is a schedule that reports all of the assets and all of the liabilities of the marital estate at a particular point in time. And it basically would consist of, all your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, your real estate, your automobiles, your retirement accounts, personal property, business interests, if you have any rental property, and then any sort of life insurance assets. We also have the liabilities, which are considered, your tax liabilities, any unpaid tax liabilities, your credit cards, if they're carrying balances or not, loans that you may have with automobiles, or for any sort of like credit lines for your home, anything like that. It's all your assets and liabilities get put together on a schedule and evaluated, and that's when we determine what portion of any of these items would be considered marital or non-marital. We do tracings, which basically, if there are premarital assets, like a brokerage account, we would have to trace those funds to ensure that the account wasn't commingled with other marital funds. We've done that for 15 years. We've done it for 20 years, depending on how many of the account statements we have and so forth. So it's a big process, but it is doable. And if there is, a significant amount of premarital assets, you do want to have that done. There's also the business valuation aspect of it. We take a look at the net asset value of the company. If it's applicable, we will add in goodwill. For the state of Florida right now, it is not. It is basically net asset value. But to that, we would add your receivables, subtract out the payables, and so forth. Again, retirement assets. There can be a premarital portion where someone comes into the marriage with an IRA or a 401k, and it's a similar calculation as, we do a little tracing of the funds that were contributed to that account during the marriage, and that's considered marital. And we also take a look at, real property. If someone comes into the marriage with a home or a rental property, we have to take into consideration the principal payments of the mortgage that were paid during the marriage. If there is a mortgage, and we look at the improvements, and if there's appreciation, again, there's a premarital portion that can be carved out of the marital estate and go to the spouse, the spouse that owns the property. We also have, with regard to alimony, we take a look at the various kinds of alimony. Permanent periodic is the most desired, but sometimes it's not available to everyone depending on the length of the marriage. So we have temporary, we have rehabilitative, and lump sum is also an option, although it would never be ordered in court. It is something that can be done in mediation, as part of settlement. And lump sum alimony is not taxable and not deductible. But should one of the parties be anxious to be divorced and already has plans to remarry, that might be a consideration. It is discounted. You will not get the monthly check in the mail, but you get a nice sum, depending on the availability of cash.
You know what? Sure. Can I interrupt just a moment, because I did that, right? We did the lump sum for me.
I think we did, yes.
Yes, we did. And there was, at the very last moment, if you remember, we worked really hard on creating the agreement with some very special wording so that it did not become a taxable event for me. Can you explain what had to happen?
Basically, lump sum alimony is not considered taxable because it isn't part of the various criteria that the IRS requires for alimony. The IRS requires that it be, the same amount every month for a certain period of time, that it be paid in cash, that the parties can't be living together when it's being paid, that sort of thing. So lump sum is basically, let's say, the alimony obligation is $100,000 to be paid over a 10-year period, but you could elect to take a discounted amount today, which would be, maybe around 75,000, something like that, depending on, what discount rates you're using. So it is definitely an option. It's a discount, but if you think that, oh, my husband's going to lose his job, I want to get remarried right away, whatever the case may be, it certainly is a good way to get your money in advance and have it, because then you have control over investing it, using it to your benefit.
So what was the language that had to be in that agreement that would be the difference between being a taxable event and a non-taxable event?
Well, basically, it basically just says that it's a lump sum alimony, okay? And when you use that language, it's presumed to be non-taxable, non-deductible, but a lot of the times the lawyers will put the non-taxable, non-deductible language in the agreement just to be sure that it is clear to everyone that it cannot be deducted nor included in income.
Okay.
And the same thing for temporary alimony as well. Temporary alimony is usually paid during the pendency of the divorce. And what happens is in that, if you come to an agreement with your spouse, it basically needs to state that it is, if you want it to be non-taxable, non-deductible, then it needs to state that. Otherwise, it is presumed to be includable in income for the receiving spouse and deductible by the payer. So you really just want to make sure that you watch that language. Okay. Okay. When taking a look at, you're down the road in your divorce process, basically, what's going to happen is you're going to have temporary support is the very first topic that usually comes up. The parties will either usually agree to keep, status quo, which means that, the husband will continue to pay all the bills, or they continue to split the bills in the way that they had done previous to the divorce filing. It really just depends. But if something goes awry and that the husband says, I'm cutting you off, then basically your lawyer would motion for a temporary relief hearing. And during that period, that hearing, it would be heard what the husband's income is, what the wife's income is, what the wife's needs are, the children's needs, what the fees are needed in order to keep the parties on a level playing field. And we as experts would testify to all of those items. The wife would normally testify as well. The husband will testify to his income. And the other expert representing the husband would also testify. So, and then the judge makes a decision. But before you do that, you have to go to a mediation to see if you can't work it out. And most of the time, our clients will settle in mediation, at least for temporary purposes. So it's kind of scary going in front of a judge and letting them decide, what temporary support you're going to get. So then what happens is we go ahead and we prepare the case for a global mediation, which is where we're going to take a look at settlement of the assets and the liabilities, what the permanent alimony will be, what the child support will be. And if the case does not settle at that mediation, then basically what happens is we prepare for trial, okay? And during that time period is where we take depositions of both the parties. We take depositions of the experts, the CPAs, doctors, if need be, psychologists, just depending on what your case requires. And then when all of that is done and discovery is done, we go to trial. And that's basically where we testify. The opposing forensic will testify, and the judge will then decide, who gets what of the marital estate, how much the alimony will be, how much the child support will be. And again, we have the ability to go to mediation before trial to try to settle all of these issues. And most of the time, our cases do settle at mediation because the costs of going to trial are quite high. So we factor that in and say, look, you're getting a little bit less, but you would pay a lot more in fees. And there's a chance that you may not get your fees paid through trial. The judge may order some fees paid, may not order any fees paid. It just really depends. So
Sonja, can I interrupt you for when we're talking about, so now we've kind of gone through the process of you've done all of your forensic work, and one of the things that I see on Facebook a lot is particularly women, and I don't know if it's because I have a lot of women, I would say probably 80% of the people on our Facebook page are women. That's a guesstimate. But a lot of people talk about hidden assets. In one particular case, her husband took all of their cash, moved it to, I think, Utah. It was a different state, but he ended up in Utah and took all of their cash with him, and is not, she has no access to it. And I don't know, how do you find out, how do you discover hidden assets? What happens to somebody that pulls something like that? Because that's not really the only time I've ever heard that. It doesn't seem to be all that unusual. How does that come into this conversation?
Basically, if the wife feels that the husband has taken funds and moved them either offshore or to another state, we can request and subpoena the bank statements, okay, of the parties' bank accounts or brokerage accounts. And what we do is we do a tracing, okay, of the.
What if you don't know about them, though, Sonja? What if they're new?
What happens is if you start 2 years prior to the date of filing and we go forward, then we can see when when the funds move, leave the accounts, okay? And basically we would have to know what state or what country they think that the funds went to. And a lot of times, when you have a wire transfer or a transfer of funds, you can see either on the bank statement or on the settlement statement of the wire, where the funds are going to, and that will give us an idea of what bank accounts or brokerage accounts we need to subpoena, as the recipient of the funds.
So in the case that I'm talking about, where he wiped out their accounts, left the state, moved to another state, and maybe opened his bank accounts there, how do you track that?
Well, I mean, that's difficult because if he just, closed out the account and took a cashier's check, okay, that's not going to give us any idea of where he has gone.
Right.
So there has to be, you have to hire a private investigator, to.
Is he required to have a deposition about all of his accounts?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And
if he doesn't disclose it, then
he's held in contempt.
Held in contempt. Okay.
Go to jail, right? And basically, he, if he lied at a deposition or at a hearing about that activity, then and it was later discovered, that the funds were absconded to another state, then yes, he could face, huge fines and or go to jail.
Okay.
But typically, if someone believes that the funds have left the state or left the country, then the wife presumably would have to hire counsel in that state in order to have jurisdiction, and to be able to subpoena the banks and the brokerage houses and so forth, because the lawyers in one particular state may not have jurisdiction in another state or another country. So a lot of times it's recommended that you hire local counsel to obtain those records.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I'm so sorry. To go ahead and go in with what you were going through. I just wanted to I know that is the the elephant in the room, which
Right.
is right. How do you do it when you don't know what you don't know?
Right, and it's funny because we've had clients that are suspicious about it, and then they ask their spouse about it, and then the spouse will just give them an idea of where the funds are, how much is there, and say, okay, I'm going to split it with you, knowing full well that there's a lot more. But again, you have to hire local counsel to be able to obtain those records. And we've had cases where we've had funds all over the world, and we have found them and had to split them, and it's not pretty, but we do it. So
Gotcha.
So, and lastly, I just wanted to talk about, that there are tax aspects to the settlement, and you want to take a look, whether or not your alimony is going to be taxable or non-taxable. Again, it's got to state that in the agreement. The taxable alimony has to meet the criteria for the IRS rules. And you have to keep in mind that when you're splitting retirement accounts, that those funds, you haven't paid tax on those yet, okay? So if you're not splitting them 50-50 in your equitable distribution, then you're pretty sure that you need to tax affect them, meaning reduce each of the balances for the tax, and that would be based on what each of the parties' tax rates would be. That's really the only fair way to do it. And you have to take a look at, if there's any gains on any, assets that are being sold, like a marital residence. Did you incur a gain of more than $500,000? That would be taxable. If you have an investment property, same thing. Any gain on that property, you would have to pay the tax on if it's being sold as a result of the divorce. Brokerage assets, we like to just split the account, with the assets in them and not sell everything, because there's capital gains that could be occurring that you're not aware of. You want to take a look at your tax return for the prior year and look at your Schedule D to see if there's a capital loss carryover that could be split by the parties. And depending on, the source of that capital loss, it could possibly be a marital asset that is considered in the agreement, whereby it's split 50-50, and so if someone gets half of their brokerage account and they need to sell an asset to get cash, then they've got a capital loss carryover, and they wouldn't have to pay, this loss would offset any gain. But one of the things too is to consider is that filing of a personal tax return. We usually recommend that if you're getting divorced and there's a tax return due that has not yet been prepared and filed with the IRS, that we just hold off. You have until October 15th of every year to file your personal return, and that can be used as a bargaining chip when settling mediation and so forth, because if you decide that you did not have any income, but your husband had a boatload of income, then, and if he's doesn't want to play fair in the mediation, then you can say, well, you know what, I'm not filing the joint tax return with you, and he would incur a higher tax rate as married filing separate return versus filing jointly. So there's lots of tax aspects that must be considered, when you're settling. And that is all that I have.
That was awesome. Wow. It's so funny because as you're going through it, I was going through my own situation with you.
Right.
And you can stop. Yeah, there you are. There you are. I was going through everything that you and I went through together, and I was not the best client. I know. I know I was a pain in the butt.
Oh, you were
but
great.
but it was really it's so this part of it for me was so difficult because I'm crossing the T's and dotting the I's for me is not my strong suit, right? That's not something that I do well to begin with. On top of when you're in an emotional state of, the best way I could describe it, Sonja, when you and I were working together was that I was in a fog. I was in absolutely, I can't even describe what it felt like, but it was an outer body experience for about 2 years.
Right.
And that was, unfortunately for you, the time that you were dealing with me. And is there anything that we can give the audience as far as advice on how to, because gosh, I wish I would have been able to get out of that fog, which is what the CafeD is all about, is to help people. We want to help people save them time, money, and their sanity. So being that I was like going through this going, what, and I kind of wasn't taking responsibility for what I needed to do and all of this other stuff, what are maybe one tip to help people kind of get out of the fog, to understand that this is, I think that, if you understand it's that this is the business transaction of the end of your marriage. What would be something that you could advise people so that they come to you with without the emotional fog that I had? And I don't know that that's even possible. I'm just, maybe you have a tip, maybe you have an idea or not.
Well, I'll tell you, we see our clients at their worst because it is so emotionally draining, particularly if you have small children, okay? Because you're caring for them, you're dealing with the divorce, you're dealing with the lawyers, the accountants. But basically, the best thing that I can tell you is to just be sure that you understand what the attorney and the forensic accountant are telling you, okay? Because you don't want to wake up the day after you settle and say, oh my God, what did I just do? I don't understand, I don't get it. So you just have to make sure that you are completely in the know about what is happening with your assets, making sure that you're going to be taken care of via alimony on a monthly basis, or whether it's lump sum, that your assets are being split 50-50 or whatever your state requires. You just want to make sure that you understand completely what's going on, and that will give you some peace of mind, because a lot the fear of the unknown, I think, is what really gets to people, and you just have to say to yourself, it's going to be okay, I'm going to be okay, my kids are going to be okay, but you have to get through it, so you really just want to make sure that you understand the process and what you're going to get at the end of the day, so that there's no regrets. Because, like you said, this is the end of your financial business arrangement, with whoever it is, and you may not get married again. You may not have someone else to care for you. So you have to be able to look at this and say, I need to be able to save this money, put it away, forget about it, and just live on the alimony. Because that's what alimony is intended to be, is for you to spend it all. So you just have to be you know, strong, very strong. I've done it twice myself, and the fear of the unknown is scary, but you just can't let it get to you. But just make sure that you're very informed, you know, about, you know, what you're going to end up with, and that you're comfortable with that. And if you're anytime you are not, then you need to say something, you know, to your lawyer, your accountant in mediation, and make sure that you understand your settlement.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Sonja. Well, we're about to go back to our private Facebook group. And I want to remind anybody that's on the call that you can go to our website to sign up for membership. It just starts at $7 a month. How amazing is that? If you go to www.theCafeD.com and join us in membership, and you can come over and get onto our very private Facebook group. And there you can ask all of your questions to Sonja today. We have other experts that are back there. Sonja's going to visit that website, that Facebook page regularly, and maybe even post some articles and some ideas that she has on how we can help you and help you save you your time, your money, and your sanity. So I encourage you, this is a 2-minute thing for you to join us, and we're going to go over there right now. Sonja, thank you so much for being with us today, because it was really, I sat there and was going through everything that I went through with you, and it really was all of this and maybe even a little bit more. So thank you for all of your amazing information, and thank you for spending your time with us, and I will see you in just a minute over on the Facebook group. We look forward to seeing everybody else there. And we will see you. I want to remind everybody we have 2 really cool, next Tuesday, we have Patty Nolan. She is a regular contributor to the Huffington Post, and she's going to be talking about the 12 things your fairy godmother wants you to know about divorce. And then on Thursday, next DivorceRx, we have an expert that's coming in. Her name is Dr. Karen Becker, and she's talking about co-parenting when your ex won't, how to get through that and how to deal with that. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you all next week. And Sonja, thank you, and we'll see you on Facebook. Bye-bye for now, everybody.
Bye.